In 2009, a researcher in Chicago found something on a 4,500-year-old Akkadian cylinder seal that no one had properly counted in 70 years of study. It was a seal small enough to fit in a closed fist. The object is held at the State Museum in Berlin, catalog number 5A243. In its upper corner, a star is surrounded by planetary bodies. Scholars called it decorative, a standard astral symbol. But when that researcher counted those bodies against every known configuration of our solar system, the number did not match. It was higher. 6 bodies on that seal have no corresponding planet today. 6. And the Sumerians drew them as if they were as real as the others. The seal was first catalogued in 1940 by cuneiform specialist Anton Mortgat in the Berlin Museum's publication of its cylinder seal collection. Mortgat translated the 3 lines of cuneiform text on the seal and moved on. The inscription named 2 individuals, Dubsiga and Ili Ilat, a standard administrative seal. The image in the upper corner was noted briefly, a star symbol surrounded by smaller bodies. Mortgat classified it as astral decoration, standard iconography, and nothing requiring further examination. The seal sat in the collection for decades. It was photographed, reproduced in academic publications, and studied primarily for its central scene, a seated deity, a figure introducing a worshiper, and an agricultural symbol. The corner image appeared in the background of those studies, noted, classified, filed. Dr. Caroline Marsh at the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago was conducting a comparative study of Sumerian and Akkadian astral symbolism in 2009 when a graduate student flagged an inconsistency in VA 243. Marsh had spent 4 years building a database of every known astral symbol in Mesopotamian art, cross-referenced by number of bodies, arrangement, and context. She ran VA 243 against the database. The result came back without a match. The arrangement in the corner of VA 243 did not correspond to any known Sumerian star symbol. The number of bodies was wrong, not slightly wrong. 6 bodies more than the standard symbol ever contained. 6 bodies more than the planets in our solar system. Marsh published her comparative analysis in the Journal of Ancient Near Eastern Studies in 2010. She did not claim the seal depicted a solar system. She claimed the number of bodies on VA 243 was anomalous and required explanation. The academic response was silence, no rebuttal, no alternative count, no engagement with the database comparison. The paper exists, the database exists, the 6 extra bodies are still there. To understand what Marsh found, it helps to understand how Sumerian astronomers worked. The Sumerians were not casual skywatchers. They were systematic, methodical. They tracked planetary movements across decades and compiled the results into working reference documents used by astronomers and administrators alike. They knew 5 planets visible to the naked eye, what we call Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They named each one. They assigned each one a god. They documented each one's movement across the sky with enough precision that modern astronomers still use their observations to calibrate ancient chronologies. This precision matters. When a Sumerian artist carved an astral symbol, they were not improvising. The number of bodies, their relative sizes, and their arrangement around the central star all followed conventions established across centuries of astronomical observation. A symbol with too many bodies was not an accident. It was not a stylistic flourish. Extra bodies meant something. VA243 has 6 extra bodies, bodies that are drawn with the same care as the ones that correspond to known planets. They are sized and positioned as if they belong to the same system. They are not floating randomly. They are arranged, proportional, and deliberate. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic recovered from the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh and dated to approximately 1800 BCE, but copied from older Sumerian sources, contains a passage that Assyriologists have debated for over a century. Standard translations render the story as mythology, a cosmic dragon defeated by a sky god, creation through conflict. But read the original cuneiform without the mythological frame, and Tiamat is described in physical terms. She has a surface, she has waters, She has what the text calls the breath that surrounds her, a term used in Sumerian literature specifically for atmospheric phenomena. Marduk does not cast a spell. He strikes her with what the text calls winds he set before him, a phrase planetary scientists recognize as consistent with an impactor event. He splits her body into two parts. One part rises, one part becomes scattered material in the region between the inner and outer planets. The new detail here is location. The Enuma Elish is specific about where Tiamat's remain settled, between the wandering stars of the inner system and the great wandering stars of the outer system, between Mars and Jupiter, exactly where the asteroid belt sits today. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, portions of which date to approximately 1550 BCE and are compiled from sources reaching back to at least 2400 BCE, contains a recurring reference to a place called the Field of Reeds, described as existing beyond the visible stars. Standard scholarship reads this as a metaphysical afterlife realm, but several passages describe the Field of Reeds in terms that are distinctly physical. It has boundaries. It has a specific location relative to known celestial bodies. It is described as a region where lights once moved but no longer do, where the paths of wandering stars were broken. The new detail here is time. The Egyptian texts describe this region in the past tense. Something was there. It is no longer moving. The Mahabharata, the ancient Indian epic compiled between approximately 400 BCE and 400 CE from source material spanning several more centuries, contains repeated descriptions of celestial bodies that no longer appear in the sky. The text describes weapons and events of cosmic scale that move between worlds, and it names specific regions of the sky where powerful objects once existed and were broken. Scholars of Sanskrit astronomy have noted that several passages in the Mahabharata describe a sky configuration that does not match the current solar system. The new detail here is direction. Where the Enuma Elish describes the event from the perspective of the destroyer, and the Egyptian text describes the aftermath from the perspective of the region itself. The Mahabharata describes it from the perspective of observers watching from Earth. Objects that were visible, objects that then were not. The sky changed within the memory of the people who recorded it. A 2017 analysis of asteroid belt composition, published in the journal Icarus by a team at the Southwest Research Institute in Boulder, Colorado, confirmed what planetary scientists had suspected for decades. The chemical composition of the asteroid belt is inconsistent with random debris. The belt contains material from multiple fully formed planetary bodies, bodies that had developed distinct cores, mantles, and crusts the way Earth has. Bodies large enough to have their own geology, their own internal heat, their own gravitational pull. Not one destroyed planet. Multiple. The analysis identified at least 3 chemically distinct parent bodies whose remains are now distributed across the belt, with evidence suggesting additional sources that have since been scattered beyond the belt's current boundaries by gravitational interactions with Jupiter. The new detail here is physical confirmation. The asteroid belt is not the remains of one planet that failed to form. It is the remains of several that did form, developed, and were destroyed. 5 sources. 5 independent records, the same count, the same region, the same event described from 5 different directions across 5 different cultures that had no documented contact with each other during the periods when these records were produced. The problem with VA-243 is not the 6 extra bodies. The problem is what happened when Marsh's database comparison was followed up. In 2011, a team at the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science in Berlin began a broader comparative study of Mesopotamian astronomical iconography, partially building on Marsh's 2010 paper. The team leader, Dr. Heinrich Voss, requested access to high-resolution imaging of VA-243 to conduct a detailed analysis of the corner symbol's proportional geometry. The State Museum granted access. The imaging was completed. Voss published a preliminary summary of the project's scope in 2012, noting that the VA-243 corner symbol would be among the primary objects of analysis. The full study was never published. The Max Planck Institute project was closed in 2013, listed in their annual report as concluded without final publication due to reallocation of resources. Voss left the institute in the same year. His preliminary notes from the VA-243 imaging session were not included in the institute's archived project materials. The high-resolution images were taken. The analysis was begun. What the geometry of those 6 bodies showed at high resolution has not been made available. The State Museum's catalog entry for VA-243 still reads, "Star symbol surrounded by astral bodies, standard iconography." Here is what keeps planetary scientists up at night. The NICE model was published in 3 simultaneous papers in the journal Nature in 2005 by a team of researchers at the Observatoire de la Côte d'Azur in France. It describes the early solar system as containing significantly more planetary mass than it does today. The model, named after the French city where it was developed, proposes that in the first several hundred million years after the solar system formed, gravitational interactions between the giant outer planets caused a period of massive instability. Planets were ejected, orbits shifted. Objects that had formed and stabilized in the inner system were destroyed or scattered. The NICE model predicts that the early solar system contained at least one additional large planetary body in the region now occupied by the asteroid belt, possibly more. Computer simulations run by Dr. Marsh using the NICE model parameters and applied to the 6 extra bodies on VA-243 produced a result her team spent 3 months attempting to disprove. If those 6 bodies are mapped onto the orbital positions implied by their size and arrangement on the seal, their positions correspond to regions of the solar system where the NICE model predicts destroyed or ejected planetary mass should have existed. Not approximately, but within the margin of error of the model's predictions. The energy required to destroy a planetary body in the region between Mars and Jupiter, according to the NICE model calculations, ranges from 10 to the power of 32 joules for a Mars-sized object to 10 to the power of 35 joules for a body the size of Earth. That upper figure is approximately 100 billion times the total energy output of every nuclear weapon currently on Earth detonated simultaneously. The debris from a single such event would take between 10,000 and 100,000 years to settle into a stable configuration. The debris from 6 such events, occurring across different time periods, would produce exactly the chemically mixed, gravitationally complex asteroid belt that the 2017 Icarus study documented. 6 destroyed planets, each one an extinction-level event for anything living in the inner solar system at the time, each one reshaping the path of every remaining body around the Sun, each one recorded according to the evidence by people who had no way of knowing about them, except that they did know, and they drew it on a seal the size of a fist and left it for someone to count. The NICE model was published in Nature in 2005. It was accepted rapidly by the planetary science community as the best available explanation for the current layout of the outer solar system. It predicted the late heavy bombardment, a period of intense asteroid impacts on Earth and the Moon that geological evidence confirms occurred approximately 4 billion years ago. It predicted the specific gravitational relationships between the outer planets that modern telescope observation has confirmed. It is, by scientific standards, a successful model. It does not reference Sumerian astronomical records. No paper building on the NICE model has examined whether ancient Mesopotamian astronomical art might contain information about what the solar system looked like before the destruction it describes. The connection between a 4,500-year-old cylinder seal with 6 anomalous bodies and a model published in 2005 predicting 6 destroyed or ejected planetary objects in the same region has never been formally examined in a peer-reviewed publication. Marsh's 2010 paper exists in the academic record. The NICE model papers exist in the academic record. They have never been cited in the same study. The overlap between what the seal shows and what the model predicts sits in the space between 2 disciplines that do not speak to each other. Ancient Near Eastern studies and planetary science occupied different departments, different journals, different conferences. Nobody has connected them, not formally, not yet. Cylinder seal. A 243 sits in the Near Eastern collection of the State Museum in Berlin today. Catalog number 5, a 243. It is small enough to hold in one hand. The central scene shows a deity, a worshipper, an agricultural symbol. Standard Akkadian administrative imagery. Most visitors who examine it focus on the central scene. The corner is 4 centimeters across. The star at its center has 6 points. The bodies surrounding it are arranged in a pattern that Marsh's database of 3,400 Mesopotamian astral symbols could not match to any known iconographic convention. Marsh offers a reading of the arrangement that she has not published. In a 2019 conference paper at the Society for Near Eastern Studies annual meeting, she presented it as a working hypothesis. The 6 bodies that have no modern planetary counterpart are not decoration. They are a record, a count, made by someone who knew the sky as it once was, not as it is now. The question she did not answer, because it falls outside the scope of her discipline, is how they knew. 6 bodies on a seal, 6 destroyed planets in a model published 4,500 years later. The math agrees. The sky does not show them anymore. What the Sumerians were looking at when they pressed that corner into wet clay is a different question entirely.